My life was already hard enough before glowing comments started appearing in front of my blind eyes. I had transmigrated into this ancient world 3 years earlier, into the body of a young woman named Evelyn who lived at the bottom of a mountain pass with her grandmother. The old woman was gone now, buried beneath the pear tree behind our cabin, and the whole village still called me the blind girl from the ravine as if blindness were my first name and my whole fate. To be clear, I was not completely blind. I could tell day from night. I could see firelight as a trembling orange fog. I could see the shape of a doorway when the sun was behind it, and I could count the shadows of people if they stood close enough. But faces were gone to me. Letters were gone. Needles, knife edges, herbs on a table, the difference between a healing root and a poisonous one, all of that belonged to memory and touch. Luckily, my grandmother had been a healer. Unluckily, she had been the sort of healer who treated children, cattle, hunting dogs, injured goats, and the occasional embarrassed farmer with the same calm authority. So by the time she died, I could set a bone by feeling the angle under skin. I could smell rot in a wound. I could stitch with thick thread if someone guided the first knot. In our part of the valley, that made me useful enough that people fed me. It did not make me safe. That autumn evening, I was boiling willow bark tea when thunder cracked over the ridge. Then I heard someone collapse outside my door. Not a polite knock. Not a villager calling for help. A body hit the packed dirt with the heavy final sound of a sack of grain dropped from shoulder height. I froze with my hand on the clay kettle. A second body fell. Then a third. Then, after a dragging scrape, a fourth. The dog in the neighbor's yard began barking so hard it choked itself. My little cabin, usually wrapped in cricket noise and river mist, suddenly felt like the center of a battlefield. I picked up my walking stick and felt my way to the door. The moment my fingers touched the latch, thin lines of golden light flashed across my vision. At first I thought lightning had burned through the clouds. But the light did not fade. It hovered in front of me in neat rows, bright enough for even my damaged eyes to catch. Words. I had not seen words clearly in 3 years, but these did not behave like real writing. They floated inside my sight, sharp and impossible. Do not open the door. This is where the villainess ruins everything. Wait, she is already blind. Poor girl. But still, do not pick the hero. The hero is outside. Trash detected. The childhood friend is there too. Also trash, but expensive trash. The prince is there. Dangerous trash. The shadow guard is there. Pick him. Pick him now. I stood with my palm flat against the wooden door, my heart banging so loudly I nearly missed the groan from the other side. The glowing comments kept sliding past. This is the famous scene. The blind healer saves the wounded hero, follows him to the capital, becomes obsessed with him, and gets torn apart by hunting dogs after the heroine returns. She thinks he owes her love. He thinks 1 bag of silver solves human life debt. Everyone suffers. Save the fourth man. He is the real villain. He looks poor, but he is the final winner. I swallowed. So that was it. I had not just fallen into an ancient world. I had fallen into a romance novel, and the story had finally found my front door. Outside, one of the men coughed wetly. Any sensible person would have barred the door, put out the lamp, and pretended the mountain had swallowed them. But I had been poor for too long to be sensible in the presence of opportunity. 4 badly wounded men from some noble disaster meant 4 possible rewards. 4 possible sacks of silver. 4 possible chances to hire a real physician in the county town and treat my eyes before darkness finished swallowing the last pieces of the world. I opened the door. Cold rain rushed in with the smell of blood, mud, iron, and expensive incense. The first man lay closest to the threshold. Even half blind, I could tell his robe was fine, the fabric slick beneath my searching fingers. He grabbed my wrist before I could touch his wound. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice low and sharp despite the blood bubbling in his chest. The comments exploded. There he is. The hero. Handsome, noble, emotionally bankrupt. Do not fall for the voice. The voice is a trap. Charge him double. I pried his fingers off me. The woman whose floor you are bleeding on. Let go if you want to keep bleeding outside. He went silent. Good. The second man was propped against the doorframe, breathing through clenched teeth. His sleeve was torn, and the muscles in his arm were tight with pain. He smelled faintly of sandalwood and horse leather. When I reached for him, he laughed once. A blind healer. This night is getting better. The comments hissed across my vision. Childhood friend. Professional flirt. He will smile while betraying everyone. He has money though. The third man was worse. He had a prince's arrogance even while unconscious. His belt buckle was carved jade, his boots soft as poured cream, and a signet ring cut into my palm when I checked his pulse. A royal. Wonderful. My grandmother always said royals were like infected wounds. Ignore them too long and they killed the whole limb. The fourth man I nearly missed. He had dragged himself under the eaves and curled beside the woodpile as if trained to keep out of sight even while dying. His clothes were black, plain, soaked through. No ornaments. No visible money. When my hand brushed his shoulder, he did not grab me or speak. He only shifted his body between me and the road, as if danger might still come and he intended to block it with what little blood he had left. The comments turned strangely soft. There. That one. The shadow guard. He has nothing now, but he would burn the whole capital if she asked for warmth. I crouched beside him longer than I meant to. His pulse was thin. His back was cut open from shoulder to waist, and under the blood I felt old scars layered like rope. His breathing was careful, controlled, quiet. Not the quiet of weakness. The quiet of someone who had been punished for every sound he ever made. Can you hear me? I asked. His fingers moved once against the mud. I smiled before I could stop myself. Good. Try not to die. I charge living patients more. The comments laughed in a streak of golden sparks. She is funny. Was she always funny? Original Villainess never said that. Congratulations. Plot. You are in trouble. I dragged them inside one by one. It was not graceful. I tied rope around ankles, braced my feet against the threshold, and pulled until my arms shook. The hero cursed when his head hit the step. The childhood friend offered useless advice. The prince groaned something about executing my entire household, which was impressive considering my household consisted of one blind woman, one cracked stove, and 3 chickens. The shadow guard helped as much as he could, even half-conscious. When I hooked my hands under his arms, he pushed with his heels so I would not carry his full weight. By midnight, my cabin looked like a noble massacre had chosen rustic lodging. I had 1 bed, 2 benches, a reed mat, and a table. I put the prince on the mat because his ring annoyed me. I put the flirt on the bench because he kept trying to talk. I put the hero on the floor near the stove because warmth would help his chest wound, and also because the floor could not complain. The shadow guard got my bed. The hero noticed. Why does he get the bed? He rasped. Because he did not insult me yet, I said. The comments applauded in silent fire. I worked until dawn. Herbs first. Fever second. Bleeding third. Pride last, if there was time. The hero had a deep stab wound under the ribs. Whoever struck him knew exactly where to slide a blade to hurt without killing quickly. I cleaned it with boiled wine while he clenched his jaw hard enough to crack teeth. Do you know who I am? He asked. Someone who cannot afford to be rude to the person holding the needle. A line of comments flashed by. He is thinking she is different from other women. Sir, she is different because she wants your money, not your approval. The childhood friend had an arrowhead buried in his shoulder. He hummed through the extraction, then passed out halfway through pretending not to hurt. The prince had poison in 1 cut and a fractured wrist. I made him vomit black bile into a basin and tied his wrist between 2 strips of bark. Then I returned to the shadow guard. He was awake. I knew because the room had changed. A silent man watching you has weight. It pressed against the air. Your wound is the worst, I said. If I clean it poorly, you die. If I clean it well, you still might die. Do you have any objection to pain? His voice was almost gone. No. 1 word. Horse. Careful. Good. Bite this. I put a folded cloth between his teeth and began. He did not scream. That bothered me more than screaming would have. People who never cried out had usually learned the hard way that crying did nothing. Every time the cloth tightened under his jaw, the glowing comments slowed, then softened again. He was a child when they threw him into the shadow barracks. He used to be someone important. He remembers her, but she does not remember him yet. I paused with the needle in my hand. Do I know you? I asked. The shadow guard's fingers curled once against the blanket. No, he said. A lie, the comments sang. A terrible lie. I finished stitching him anyway. By morning, the storm had passed. Mist climbed the ravine. My cabin smelled like blood, smoke, wine, and crushed herbs. 4 men breathed in 4 different rhythms, and I sat at the table with my head in my hands, exhausted but richer in theory. When the hero woke properly, he introduced himself with the flat expectation that I would fall apart. I am Adrian Blackwell, heir to the Westmarch estate. Save my life, and I will reward you with 1,000 silver coins. The amount almost made me drop the spoon. The comments scoffed. 1,000. Cheap. He paid more for a jade hairpin for the heroine. Ask for medical fees separately. I set the spoon down. 1,000 is the gratitude gift. Medicine, lodging, food, laundry, emotional damage, and floor cleaning are separate. The childhood friend laughed so hard he tore a stitch. I like her, he said. I do not discount for liking, I replied. He introduced himself as Nathaniel, son of a powerful minister. The prince, when fever left him enough to speak without threatening executions, admitted he was Prince Julian, 3rd son of the royal family. He did not say thank you. He said, name your price carefully. Greed shortens common lives. I leaned close enough that my cloudy eyes probably looked alarming. So does infection. The comments went wild. Put that on a plaque. Blind healer threatening a prince with pus. Iconic. The 4th man refused to give a name. Then I will call you Ash, I said, because his black clothes had dried to the color of burned wood. He did not object. The others objected for him. He is no one, Adrian said. A guard. Treat him after us. He has already been treated, I said. With what money? I tilted my head toward Adrian's voice. Yours, if you keep talking. Silence landed hard. Ash's breathing changed, barely. Not a laugh. Not even close. But something in him eased. For the next 7 days, my cabin became the strangest sick room in the kingdom. Adrian recovered with noble impatience. He expected water before asking, medicine without thanking, and explanations only when he demanded them. He was not stupid. That made him worse. A foolish, cruel man could be dismissed. Adrian knew how to be charming when it benefited him. He thanked me beautifully on the 3rd day, voice warm as summer wine, and the comments immediately warned me. Careful. This is how he collects devotion. He smiles like a promise and pays like a debt collector. I smiled back and doubled his herb fee. Nathaniel recovered with jokes. He asked what I looked like, then described himself in such dramatic terms that I threw a rag at his head. He told stories of court balls, winter hunts, and women who supposedly wept when he passed. The comments supplied less flattering information. He loved the heroine first, then loved his own heartbreak more. Pretty mouth, weak spine. Useful if pointed in the right direction. Prince Julian was the most dangerous. Fever burned his arrogance down to something raw and restless. Sometimes he woke from dreams gripping his dagger, whispering his sister's name. The heroine, apparently, was his half-sister, the one the novel adored. He loved her with the possessive panic of a man who mistook control for protection. When I fed him medicine, he asked, "Has a young woman come through this valley?" Fair, soft voice, wears a moonstone pendant. The comments answered before I did. Heroine alert. She is kind, but the men around her are a disaster zone. I said, no. He sagged back, disappointed. Ash watched everything. He spoke rarely. He ate whatever I handed him. He never complained when I changed the bandages on his back, even when the wound reopened and blood warmed my fingers. If I reached for a cup and missed, he moved it under my hand. If I walked toward the stove too fast, he shifted his foot to warn me where the coal bucket Saturday. He did not make a show of helping. He simply adjusted the world around my blindness and expected no praise. That unsettled me. People usually helped blind people loudly. They announced every kindness. They wanted witnesses, even if the witness was only the person they helped. Ash gave assistance the way a tree gave shade. On the 8th night, I woke to a blade against my throat. I did not move. The cabin was dark. Rain had returned, soft on the roof. Someone stood over me, breathing evenly. The comments appeared in urgent gold. Assassin from the old king. Do not scream. Ash is awake. The blade pressed closer. A man's whisper slid through the room. Where is the prince? I let my hand fall from the blanket and knock over the cup beside the bed. Ceramic shattered. The blade vanished from my throat. A body hit the wall. Then another sound, wet and final.
He sat up, hard hammering.
Ash. Here, he said. That single word came from beside me, low and steady. The assassin gurgled once on the floor. Adrian cursed awake. Nathaniel demanded light. Prince Julian struggled with his splintered wrist. I stayed very still, touching my throat, feeling one thin line of blood. Ash crossed the room without a footstep. A moment later, the lamp flared. In its blur, I saw his outline. Tall, narrow, one arm braced against the table because his backwound had torn open again. A dark smear spread down his side. You reopened it, I said. You are alive, he answered. The comments went quiet for 3 whole breaths. Then one line appeared. This is why we picked him. After the assassin, no one pretended my cabin was an accident anymore. Adrian wanted to leave at once. His wound disagreed. Nathaniel wanted to send a message to his family. Prince Julian wanted to interrogate the dead man, which seemed ambitious. Ash cleaned the blade, checked the window latches, and told me there would be more. How many? I asked. Enough. That is not a number. Too many for this house. Practical. Grim. Annoyingly correct. By dawn, the men had argued themselves into a plan. Their allies were 3 days away. The mountain road was watched. We would hide until night, move through the old charcoal trail behind the ravine, and reach a post station where Adrian could reveal his identity without being conveniently murdered. No one asked whether I would come. That was when I understood the original plot more clearly. In the novel, the blind healer had probably mistaken being included in danger for being chosen. She had saved a noble heir, heard his gratitude, followed him into a world of silk and knives, and thought suffering beside him meant she mattered. I could feel how easy that trap might be. When your life is small, even a disaster can look like a door. But I had seen the comments. I had also seen enough of men to know a debt was not affection. So when Adrian said, "Pack your things. You will come to Westmarch as my household physician," I laughed. Everyone stopped. "No," I said. He sounded genuinely confused. "No. No. You live alone in poverty. I am offering you protection. You are offering me employment wrapped in danger and spoken like a command." Nathaniel made a soft amused noise. Prince Julian muttered, "She has sense." Adrian's voice cooled. "A woman in your condition should not refuse a rare chance to improve her station." The comments sharpened. There it is. He always believes he is the prize. I reached for the ledger board where I had carved each man's fees in notches. My station improves when you pay me, not when I enter your house and become another thing you own. For once, Adrian had no answer. Ash did. "I will pay her." The room shifted. Nathaniel said, lightly, "With what?" Your solemn expression. Ash ignored him. "I owe you a life. More than one, after last night. I cannot pay now. I can write a debt note." Adrian laughed under his breath. "A guard's debt note is worth less than fire, Ash." The comments flashed. "Keep it. Keep the note." I held out my hand. "Write it." Ash tore a strip from the clean edge of an old cloth and pricked his finger. I heard the faint drag of a brush. When he placed the cloth in my palm, The blood ink was still wet. I could not read it. Not with my eyes. But the comments, blessedly nosy, translated. I, Elias, owe Evelyn one life, one fortune, and one future. Until paid, my blade belongs first to her survival. Elias. The name touched something in me. Not memory exactly. More like a door in a dark room moving slightly in wind. Elias, I said. His breathing stopped. The comments exploded. She said his real name. He is gone. Finished. Married in his head. I folded the cloth and tucked it into the inner pocket of my patched coat. That night, we left the cabin. The old charcoal trail crawled along the ravine like a black ribbon. I knew it by foot more than sight. 3 steps over roots, 6 downhill, duck under the broken pine, listen for the stream, then follow the cold air. The men were wounded, proud, and terrible at obeying quiet instructions. Adrian snapped branches. Nathaniel slipped twice. Prince Julian breathed through pain without complaint, which made me respect him against my better judgment. Elias moved behind me. I could not hear him. I only knew he was there because every time the trail narrowed, his hand hovered near my elbow, close enough to catch, never close enough to cage. At the creek crossing, Adrian tried to take my arm. The stones are slick, he said. I know. I live here. Do not be stubborn. Before I could answer, Elias stepped between us. She said no. 3 words. Quiet as snowfall. Adrian's silence was not fear. Not yet. It was the first offended pause of a man unused to being blocked by someone he considered beneath him. The comments glittered like festival lights. Shadow Guard Boundary Service. 10 out of 10. Across the creek, torchlight appeared between the trees. We all froze. Men on horseback. 6, maybe 7. Armor clinked under wet cloaks. One carried a lantern carved with the royal hawk. Prince Julian whispered a curse. My father's men, he said. Or my uncle's. Hard to tell which one wants me dead today. Adrian drew a short blade. Nathaniel reached for a hidden knife. Neither movement impressed me. They were hurt, half-starved, and standing on slick stones. Heroic death looked very glamorous in songs and very inconvenient in real mud. I touched Elias's sleeve. Can we avoid them? Yes, he said. Can all of us avoid them? A pause. No. The comments screamed several plans at once. Leave Adrian. Use the goat path. Prince Julian knows the old shrine tunnel. Heroine is nearby. The plot is collapsing. I turned toward Prince Julian. Is there a shrine tunnel? He went still. How do you know that? Blind woman secrets. Move. The tunnel was not a tunnel so much as a drainage cut behind a ruined mountain shrine. We crawled through it on elbows and knees while soldiers searched the road above us. Mud soaked my skirt. My bandaged patients dragged themselves forward 1 miserable inch at a time. At one point Nathaniel whispered that if he survived, he would never mock honest poverty again because honest poverty had impressive escape routes. You will mock it by next week, I whispered back. Probably, he admitted. Elias came last, wiping away our tracks with a pine branch. At sunrise, we reached an abandoned hunter's shed. I made everyone lie down and checked their wounds by touch. Adrian's fever had returned. Nathaniel's shoulder was swelling. Prince Julian's poison cut had darkened at the edge. Elias's back was a disaster. All of you are idiots, I said. A precise diagnosis, Nathaniel murmured. I worked again. There is a kind of intimacy in tending wounds that has nothing to do with romance. Pain strips people down. Adrian, feverish, said a woman's name over and over. Serafina. Serafina. The heroine. His obsession sounded less like love than hunger. Nathaniel asked me whether I had ever wanted to see the capital. No, I said. Everyone wants to see the capital. Everyone with money wants to see the capital. Everyone without money wants to survive the capital. Prince Julian laughed once at that, then groaned because laughing hurt. Elias said nothing. When it was his turn, he sat with his back to me and untied his robe without complaint. The wound had split in 2 places. I cleaned it while the shed filled with morning light. Elias, I said softly. His shoulders tightened. Do not lie this time. Did we meet before? For a long while, he said nothing. Then he answered, a starving boy once traveled with a refugee group after a border fire. A girl gave him half a steamed bun and lied that she was not hungry. Later, when soldiers came, she pushed him into a grain cart and told him not to breathe. My hand stopped. The dark room in my memory opened. Smoke. Snow. Hunger so sharp it made children quiet. A boy with grey eyes, thin as a reed, clutching a cracked jade ring on a cord around his neck. I had been small then, before this body lost its sight completely, before my grandmother found me. I remembered splitting bread. I remembered blood on snow. I remembered a boy pressing something cold into my hand. The ring, I whispered. He turned his head slightly. You kept it. I had. I wore it sewn into the hem of my inner coat because it was the only thing from my early years that felt like proof I had existed before becoming the blind healer. I had never known what it meant. The comments moved slowly now. That jade belonged to the murdered crown princess. He was not born a guard. He was the crown prince's son. The old king erased him. I sat back on my heels. Who are you? Elias said, no one useful to you yet. That is not an answer. It is the safest answer. I should have let it go. Instead I touched the old scar near his shoulder, the one that felt like a brand cut away. Safe for whom? His voice changed, almost too low to hear. For you. By the third evening, the allies finally found us. Not Adrian's men. Not Prince Julian's guards. Elias's. They appeared from the trees without warning, 6 figures in dark traveling cloaks, each kneeling before him as if kneeling before a throne only they could see. Adrian stared. Nathaniel stopped smiling. Prince Julian went pale in a way fever had not managed. I knew you, the prince said. From the palace records. The dead branch. Elias did not answer. The comments filled in the missing pieces with brutal speed. The old king's elder son was accused of rebellion 15 years ago. The crown princess died in a fire. Their child disappeared. The child became a blade in the dark. And now the blade has loyal soldiers. I wanted nothing to do with royal secrets. Unfortunately, royal secrets had eaten my supper, bled on my blankets, and reopened their stitches in my shed. The kneeling men called Elias Your Highness. Adrian slowly turned toward me, and for the first time since he collapsed at my door, uncertainty cracked his voice. You knew. I know very little, I said. People keep bleeding instead of explaining. Nathaniel laughed under his breath. Fair. Prince Julian looked from Elias to the road. If you are who they think you are, my father will turn the capital into a furnace to keep you out of it. Elias said, he already did that once. The quiet in the shed hardened. I understood then that this was larger than a romance plot. The glowing comments made the world seem like entertainment, but pain was never entertainment to the person living inside it. Elias's family had been murdered. Adrian's obsession with Seraphina had dragged him into court schemes. Prince Julian's loyalty to his sister had blinded him to his father's crimes. Nathaniel smiled because smiling kept him from choosing sides until choice became unavoidable. And me. I had wanted silver. I still wanted silver. But I also wanted to keep breathing. Elias's men brought horses, medicine, and the first clean bandages I had seen in weeks. One of them, an older woman with a scar through her eyebrow, examined my eyes by candlelight. She smelled of mint and metal. Old trauma, she said. Inflammation made worse by bad treatment and smoke exposure. She is not beyond help. My hands went cold. Say that again, I demanded. The woman sounded amused. You are not beyond help. With proper medicine, rest, and surgery by a capital physician, some sight may return. For a moment, the whole world narrowed to the lamp's blurred glow. I had not realized how carefully I had trained myself not to hope until hope arrived and hurt. Adrian spoke first. West March has physicians. I can arrange it. Elias said, so can I. Prince Julian muttered, So can the royal family, if we survive the next week. Wonderful, I said. All three of you may compete by paying in advance. The comments lost control. Capitalism defeats romance. She is the only rational person in this forest. That night, I slept badly. The comments did not stop. They showed me fragments of the original story like sparks from a burning page. The blind healer in the novel had followed Adrian. She had entered Westmarch with gratitude braided into her hair and humiliation waiting at every doorway. Servants mocked her country manners. Noble women laughed at her cloudy eyes. Adrian protected her when convenient and forgot her when Serafina appeared. Then Evelyn, desperate to be seen, had become the villain they expected. She had lied, schemed, wept, begged, clung. She hurt Serafina because Serafina was the son every man turned toward. For that, the story punished Evelyn as if loneliness were a crime invented by women. Hunting dogs. Snow. Screaming. I woke with my nails in my palms. Elias was seated outside the shed door. Nightmare, he asked. Memory of something that did not happen yet. He accepted that too easily. Then we change it. You say that like changing fate is simple. No, he said. I say it like the alternative is unacceptable. I sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket. The eastern sky was pale grey. For once, the comments were quiet. If you take the capital, I asked, what happens to me? Whatever you choose. Men say that until women choose something inconvenient. He turned toward me. I could not see his face clearly, only the dark shape of him against dawn. Then choose something inconvenient and test me. That was dangerous. Not because it was sweet. Sweetness was easy. It was dangerous because he sounded as if he meant it. We moved before sunrise. The next days became a blur of hidden roads, coded whistles, changing horses, and news carried by frightened villagers. The king had declared Prince Julian missing. Adrian's estate had been accused of harboring rebels. Nathaniel's father had locked down the ministry. Serafina, the beloved heroine, had vanished from the capital after riding out to search for her brother. The comments were frantic. She is coming here. Original heroine enters the mountain arc early. Protect her, but do not let the obsessed men make decisions. We met Serafina at the burned mill outside Greyford. Even through my blurred sight, I could tell she was beautiful in the way stories love. Bright cloak, soft voice, hair catching sunlight, fear held bravely under manners. She ran to Prince Julian first. He grabbed her with his good arm as if the world might steal her again. Adrian looked at her like a starving man seeing bread. Nathaniel's smile vanished. I suddenly understood why original Evelyn had lost her mind. Not because Serafina was cruel. She was not. That was the worst part. Serafina thanked me sincerely for saving them. She took my hands and called me brave. Her kindness had no hook in it. The men around her were the hooks. Adrian stepped forward. Serafina, I came for you. She blinked. You were bleeding to death in a healer's cabin. The comments screamed laughter. Heroine with accidental reality check. Adrian did not like it. He reached for her hand. Everything I endured was because I could not abandon you. Prince Julian stiffened. Nathaniel looked away. Serafina gently pulled her hand back. Adrian, she said, I never asked you to ruin yourself for me. For one clean second, the romance plot cracked open and showed the rot underneath. Then arrows fell from the trees. Elias moved before anyone else. He shoved me behind the mill wall, drew steel, and became motion. I heard arrows strike wood. Horses screamed. Men shouted royal commands. Prince Julian dragged Serafina down. Adrian shouted her name instead of watching his own left side, and Nathaniel tackled him before a spear opened his throat. I crouched behind broken stone, useless and furious. Blindness is not noble in battle. It is not poetic. It is terror made physical. I could smell smoke and iron, hear footsteps, feel grit under my knees, but I could not tell who was dying until they made a sound. The comments became my battlefield map. 2 behind the wheel. Knife on your right. Duck. I ducked. A blade scraped sparks from the stone where my head had been. I grabbed the pouch at my waist, tore it open, and flung powdered lime and pepper toward the sound of breathing. A man screamed. I swung my walking stick with both hands and felt it connect with bone. The comments flashed. Healer build unlocked. Dirty fighting. Another man came. I heard him too late. Then he stopped. A warm line sprayed across my cheek. Elias said, very calmly, "Stay behind me." I was doing fine. "You were terrifying. Stay behind me anyway." It would have been a good moment to argue, but someone blew a horn from the road. "More soldiers!" Prince Julian shouted, "They are my father's Black Banner." The Black Banner did not come to arrest. They came to erase. Elias's men were skilled, but outnumbered. We needed leverage. I hated that I knew exactly where it stood. Seraphina. The heroine was the king's treasured daughter, the prince's weakness, Adrian's obsession, Nathaniel's regret. In the original story, everyone used Evelyn because she was disposable. Now the only person with enough value to stop a massacre was the one the story protected. I crawled to Seraphina. She was pale but unhurt, clutching Prince Julian's dagger with both hands. "Do you trust your brother?" I asked. "Yes." "Do you trust Adrian?" Her silence answered. "Do you trust me?" She looked at my clouded eyes, the blood on my cheek, the powder on my hands. "I think I should," she said. "Good. Scream when I tell you." The comments paused. "Oh, this is new. Evelyn, what are you cooking?" I pressed the blunt side of the dagger near Seraphina's throat and shouted, "Stop, or the princess dies." Seraphina screamed beautifully. The battlefield froze. Every man there turned toward us. Prince Julian's face went white. Adrian looked destroyed. Nathaniel looked horrified, then sharply thoughtful. Elias looked at the angle of my hand, saw the flat of the blade, and did not misunderstand. That was the difference. He trusted my intention before anyone explained it. The commander of the Black Banner rode forward under a hawk standard. "Release the princess." "Withdraw," I called back. "You are surrounded. And she is very soft-necked." Seraphina made a small strangled sound that might have been fear or laughter. Possibly both. The comments applauded. She learned Villainess theater and used it for public safety. 5 stars. The commander hesitated. He had orders to erase rebels. He did not have permission to return with the king's daughter dead by a blind village healer's hand. That hesitation gave Elias the opening he needed. His hidden archers revealed themselves along the mill roof. Prince Julian, to his credit, recovered fast. He lifted his voice and shouted to the Black Banner soldiers that the king had murdered the crown prince's family, hidden the rightful heir, and sent assassins against his own children. Men do not change loyalty because of one speech, but doubt is a crack, and cracks are enough when arrows are ready. The commander's horse reared. Elias struck. I could not see the fight clearly. I heard it as metal, breath, mud, command, and collapse. Seraphina stayed perfectly still under my fake blade, trembling but brave. When one soldier tried to aim at Elias, she whispered, "Left roof." I repeated, "Left roof." Elias moved. The soldier fell. For several brutal minutes, the story stopped being a romance and became the cost of power. Men who had followed bad orders died beside men who had followed righteous revenge. Adrian fought well when he remembered the world contained people other than Seraphina. Nathaniel saved Prince Julian from a spear and cursed him for being heavy. Prince Julian, injured wrist and all, took command of wavering royal soldiers with the easy authority of someone born to be obeyed. When it ended, the mill yard was silent except for rain dripping from broken beams. The Black Banner commander knelt in the mud with Elias's sword at his throat. "Who sent you?" Elias asked. The commander smiled with bloody teeth. "The king sends everyone. Then I will answer him myself." That was how a hidden rebellion became open war. I wish I could say I faced it bravely. I did not. I vomited behind the mill once no one needed me to look dangerous. Seraphina held my hair back. Then I held hers when shock caught up to her too. It was not glamorous. It was honest. You did not mean to hurt me, she said after a while. No. I know. That should have been awkward. Instead, it was a relief. Adrian approached us at sunset. Serafina, he began. She stood. Not now. He flinched as if she had struck him. I nearly died for you, he said. You nearly died because you made choices and called them love. The comments went silent, as if even they respected the line. Adrian looked at me then, and something resentful entered his voice. You poisoned her against me. I laughed once. I could not help it. I barely know her. You did this yourself. His face blurred in my vision, but I felt the old plot trying to pull tight. This was where original Evelyn would have begged for a glance while Adrian worshipped another woman. This was where jealousy would have made her ugly so everyone else could feel pure. I did not step into the trap. Pay what you owe, I told him. Then go wherever your regrets take you. Nathaniel whistled softly. She really does not care. I care about the money, I said. Elias, standing behind me, made that almost laugh-breathing sound again. The war lasted 12 days. That is what the histories later wrote, anyway. 12 days from the burned mill to the Capitol gates. They made it sound clean. It was not. We hid in farmhouses, crossed rivers at night, bribed gatekeepers, treated wounds in barns, and listened to proclamations calling Elias a false prince, a demon, a puppet, a ghost. The king's ministers split. Old soldiers who had served the crown prince took out banners hidden for 15 years. Villages opened their grain stores because they remembered the dead princess with kindness. And everywhere we went, the glowing comments followed. They warned me of poisoned tea. They told me which messenger carried a false seal. They identified a smiling servant with a knife in her sleeve. They also argued constantly about romance. Hold hands already. She is blind and exhausted. Let her sleep. Elias has not blinked in 6 hours because she smiled at him. I tried not to read those lines. It was difficult, since they were literally in my eyes. On the 7th day, the physician from Elias's camp began treating my sight. The medicine burned. The bandages smelled bitter and clean. I had to rest in darkness between doses, which was deeply unfair considering darkness was already my main landscape. But by the 10th day, the world sharpened by a finger's width. I saw candle flames as flames instead of blobs. I saw the outline of Elias's face when he sat beside my bed. Sharp jaw. Tired mouth. Eyes like storm clouds over winter water. He noticed the moment I saw him. What? He asked. You look less like Ash than expected. Is that good? I have not decided. The comments screamed. She saw him. She saw him first. He is pretending to be calm. He is dying internally. Elias lowered his gaze, but the tips of his ears darkened. I decided that was very good. The final confrontation happened in the Hall of Ancestors. The old king had retreated there with his loyal guards, dragging Serafina with him as a shield. Prince Julian had changed sides openly by then, which meant the king no longer bothered pretending fatherhood mattered. Adrian, wild with panic, tried to rush the hall alone and nearly got himself killed. Nathaniel stopped him with a punch that echoed through the corridor. For once, Nathaniel snapped, love her by not making everything worse. Adrian stayed down. Inside the hall, the old king held a dagger to Serafina's throat. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Perhaps because I had performed this scene already. Perhaps because villains, once named, became less frightening. Elias stood at the center of the hall, blood on his sleeve, Crown Prince's jade ring hanging from my hand as proof no minister could deny. The old king laughed. A shadow dog thinks he can sit on a throne. Elias did not answer the insult. I did. A dog would have shown more loyalty than you. Every head turned. My sight was still poor, but I could see enough to know I had offended a king. Good. The comments flashed. She really woke up and chose treason. Worth it. The king's dagger pressed into Serafina's skin. One more word from you, and the princess dies. Adrian made a broken sound. I said, if you kill her, no one here has a reason to keep you alive. His grip tightened. You think they love her enough to surrender, I continued. You are wrong. They love her enough to hate you forever. That is not the same thing. Serafina looked at me. Even terrified, she understood. She drove her heel down on the king's foot. At the same time, Elias threw his blade. Prince Julian lunged. Nathaniel dragged Adrian back. The dagger cut Serafina's neck, shallow but bright. Elias's blade struck the king's shoulder. Julian slammed into him with the force of years of swallowed fear. The guards broke. The hall erupted. When it was over, the old king lay beneath the ancestral tablets he had lied under for half his life. Elias did not kill him immediately. That surprised me. He knelt, picked up the fallen dagger, and looked at the man who had destroyed his family. The hall waited. The comments waited. I waited too. Elias finally said, "Death is too private for you." The king was imprisoned, tried before the court, and forced to hear every crime read aloud. The crown prince's old case was overturned. The names of the dead were restored. The kingdom, which had nearly drowned in one man's fear, began the slow, ugly work of breathing again. Histories later called Elias the Restoration Emperor. The comments called him wife-focused with excellent murder discipline. Both were true. I received my silver. All of it. Adrian paid first, probably because guilt had finally become heavier than pride. He came to me in the palace physician's garden 3 days after the trial, carrying a lacquered chest and looking like a man who had discovered too late that noble sorrow did not make him interesting. "I wronged you," he said. I was sitting with bandages over my eyes, drinking medicine that tasted like boiled weeds and betrayal. Specifically or generally? A pause. Both. At least he was learning. He set the chest beside me. Coins shifted inside with the most beautiful sound in any world. "This is more than I promised," he said. "Good. I thought you might refuse it." "Why would I do that?" "Because you hate me." I considered that. The old Evelyn might have hated him. The original Villainess had probably hated him because hating was easier than admitting she had built her life around a man who had never invited her inside his heart. I did not hate him. Hatred required a level of emotional investment I preferred to spend elsewhere. "I do not hate you," I said. "I hope you become less useless. That is all." The comments approved. Healthy closure with financial compensation. Personal growth invoice paid. Adrian gave a strained laugh. Serafina said something similar. "She is smart. Listen to her by leaving her alone." He bowed. Properly this time. Not like a lord rewarding a poor healer, but like a patient acknowledging a person. It did not erase anything. It was simply better than before. Nathaniel paid next. He brought silver, 2 jars of rare ointment, and a ridiculous apology written in verse. "I was told women appreciate poetry," he said. "Who told you that?" "Women who liked me. Find wiser women." He laughed. Then, after a moment, he said, "I'm going to court Serafina." I removed one bandage enough to glare at his blur. "Carefully," he added quickly. "Respectfully. With permission. With no dramatic self-sacrifice unless strictly necessary." "Better." The comments debated him for several lines. "He has potential if supervised." "Heroine deserves someone who can be trained." "Serafina can handle him." Prince Julian paid through the royal treasury and complained about every coin. Then he sent 3 more physicians for my eyes, which was his way of apologizing without lowering himself to a direct statement. Serafina visited often. She brought fruit, news, and a clear-eyed understanding that both of us had nearly been written into roles too small for us. "In another life," she said one afternoon, "we might have been enemies. In another life, men around you might have made that unavoidable." She was quiet for a while. "Then I am glad this is this life." So was I. My sight returned slowly, imperfectly, like dawn negotiating with fog. I would never have perfect eyes. Fine embroidery remained a punishment. Distant faces blurred. Small writing still belonged to other people. But I could see the red of pomegranates, the gold of palace lanterns, the black line of ink on white paper. I could see Elias standing in the doorway when he thought I was asleep. He did that often. For a man who had overthrown a king, he was absurdly hesitant about entering my room. The comments had opinions. He can command armies but cannot ask to sit beside her. Someone help him. No, let him suffer. It is character development. One evening, I finally said, "If you are going to stare, you may as well come in." He stepped inside immediately. I was not staring. You were guarding a closed door with your face. That is different. It is not. He sat beside my couch, hands resting on his knees like a disciplined student. The lamp painted one side of his face amber. Now that I could see him more clearly, I noticed how young he was beneath the scars and silence. Not soft. Never that. But young enough that grief had stolen years instead of finishing him. I pulled the blood-written debt note from my sleeve. You owe me one life, one fortune, and one future, I said. His eyes lowered to the cloth. Yes. The fortune is partly paid. The life is inconvenient to collect. As for the future, what did you mean? He looked at me for a long time. Whatever future you wanted, he said. I meant to make sure you could have it. Even if it had nothing to do with you. His jaw tightened once. Yes. That answer did more damage to my defenses than any declaration would have. I leaned back. What if I want a clinic? Then you will have a clinic. A real one. Not a charity room for nobles to praise themselves. A place for women, servants, farmers, children, injured workers, anyone who gets ignored until the pain becomes inconvenient for the rich. Then you will have that. What if I want to train girls who were told their hands were only good for sewing and serving? Then they will learn medicine. What if I want to refuse palace banquets? I will envy you. I laughed. He watched me as if laughter were a rare thing he had been trusted to hold. And what if, I said slowly, I want you to stop standing 3 steps away like affection is a military formation? His composure broke. Only a little. Only around the eyes. But I saw it, and because I saw it, the moment belonged to me. Evelyn, he said. My name in his mouth was not a command, not a debt, not a prayer. It was a door opened carefully. I held out my hand. He took it. The comments became completely unreadable for several seconds because they were moving too fast. There was no instant wedding. That would have been ridiculous. He had a kingdom to stabilize. I had surgeries, medicine, and a clinic to build. Also, I refused to marry anyone while half the court still looked at me and saw a blind village girl who had accidentally become important. If they wanted an empress, they could first learn to respect a physician. Elias agreed. The court did not. That was enjoyable. Ministers came in waves. They told Elias that marriage was political. They suggested noble daughters with powerful families, perfect posture, and no habit of threatening kings in ancestral halls. Elias listened with the calm expression that made generals nervous. Then he said, "No." Again and again. "No. No. No." One minister, old enough to mistake age for immunity, said, "Your Majesty, the healer is unsuitable. She is of low birth, visually impaired, and too sharp-tongued for the inner palace." I happened to be behind the screen, sorting medical records for the new clinic. The comments whispered, "Say something. Destroy him politely." I stepped out. The minister stiffened. I smiled. "Too sharp-tongued. Your diagnosis is incomplete. I am also expensive." Elias covered his mouth with one hand. The minister flushed. "This is a state matter." "Excellent. Then let us discuss state value. I saved the emperor, Prince Julian, Lord Adrian, Minister Nathaniel's heir, and Princess Erfina. I exposed assassins, identified poison, kept half your political future from dying of infection, and founded a clinic currently treating soldiers your ministry forgot to pay. Which of your recommended noble daughters has comparable experience?" No one answered. That is what I thought. After that, the court stopped calling me unsuitable where I could hear. They called me formidable instead. Better. The clinic opened in winter. We used an old administrative hall near the Eastern Market, close enough for commoners to reach and grand enough to annoy officials who dislike seeing poor people under painted beams. Women came first, cautiously, then children, then workers with crushed fingers, coachmen with old injuries, kitchen maids with burns, soldiers with nightmares hidden under jokes. I trained 6 girls from the outer wards. Their hands shook on the first day. By spring, they could clean wounds better than most palace apprentices. Sometimes I still read the comments. They appeared less often after the main plot broke, but they remained like nosy stars. She escaped the dog ending. She made her own route. The Villainess became the healer of the capital. Not Villainess. Protagonist. I liked that one. Serafina eventually accepted Nathaniel's courtship after making him wait long enough to develop humility. Prince Julian became an exhausted reformer with a permanent suspicion of anyone who said, "That is how things have always been done." Adrian left the capital for the northern border, where difficult weather and honest labor seemed to improve him. As for Elias, he kept appearing at my clinic with increasingly transparent excuses. A scratched hand. A headache. A report that allegedly required my medical opinion despite being about tax grain. Once, he claimed concern over paper cut. I looked at the tiny mark on his finger, then at the Emperor of the realm. "Do you require surgery? If you recommend it." The girls in training turned away to hide their smiles. The comments did not bother hiding anything. Down catastrophic. Imperial dignity missing, presumed dead. I wrapped his paper cut with a strip of gauze large enough for a battlefield injury and charged him 10 silver. He paid without blinking. In the second summer after the rebellion, I returned to the mountain cabin. Elias came with me, though I told him an emperor had better things to do than follow a physician to a leaky roof. "No," he said. "No. I have delegated." "You delegated an empire." "Temporarily." The cabin was smaller than I remembered. The pear tree behind it had grown wild over my grandmother's grave. I knelt there for a long time, pulling weeds by touch, telling her about the clinic, my eyes, the girls learning medicine, the ridiculous emperor pretending paper cuts were emergencies. Elias stood at a respectful distance. When I finished, he placed a small bundle beside the grave. Dried tea leaves, good salt, and a length of warm cloth. Gifts a village healer would have valued. "Thank you," I said. "She saved you," he replied. "That saved me." The comments appeared in a single quiet line. Full circle. That evening, we sat on the cabin step while fireflies opened and closed over the grass. My sight was good enough now to see them as points of green light. Years ago, I had thought beauty was something I would have to remember instead of witness. Now the world kept returning itself in fragments. Elias took the old jade ring from his sleeve. I knew it before he spoke. "This was my mother's," he said. "I gave it to you when we were children because I had nothing else and thought I would die. You kept it when it could not help you. You returned it when it could have made you powerful." "I considered selling it," I said. His mouth curved. "I know. It would have been practical. You are very practical. And yet here you are." He knelt before me on the worn wooden step, not like a ruler granting favor, but like the boy from the snow finally asking to stay. "Evelyn," he said, "will you choose me when you owe me nothing?" The comments held their breath. So did I. In my first life on Earth, I had read stories to escape ordinary loneliness. In this life, I had been handed a script where I was meant to become someone's cautionary tale. The blind villainess. The jealous fool. The woman punished for wanting too much from people who offered too little. But a script is only powerful until someone refuses to say the line. I had opened the door for 4 wounded men because I wanted money. I had followed glowing comments because survival mattered more than dignity. I had chosen the shadow in the corner because he respected my no before offering me his yes. None of that was pure or perfect. It was mine. I took the ring. Then I took his hand. "Yes," I said. "But I am keeping my clinic." Elias bowed his head over our joined hands. "I know. And my fees." "Of course." And if you ever call my sharp tongue unsuitable, I will charge you for emotional damage. His laugh was quiet, real, and freer than any sound I had heard from him before. I would expect nothing less. We married in autumn, after harvest, after the clinic's second ward opened, after the court exhausted itself trying to object and discovered I had more public support than most ministers. Serafina cried through the ceremony. Nathaniel cried louder and denied it. Prince Julian complained that imperial weddings created paperwork. Adrian sent a northern horse and a letter that contained an apology, a blessing, and no dramatic confession, which proved growth was possible. On the wedding night, when the palace finally quieted, Elias removed my heavy crown with the same care he once used to move a cup under my searching hand. "Tired?" he asked. "Very." "Hungry?" "Always." He smiled and produced a plate of honey cakes from behind the screen. The comments reappeared at once. Correct husband behavior. Green flag with a body count. Best stock pick in ancient romance history. I ate 2 cakes before allowing any romance to continue. A woman should have priorities. Years later, people told the story many ways. Some said the Restoration Emperor survived because heaven sent him a healer. Some said the blind physician saw truth more clearly than the entire court. Some said the villainess changed fate because mysterious golden omens guided her path. Let them say what they wanted. I knew the simpler truth. I opened a door one stormy night and found 4 bleeding versions of my future on the ground. One offered status. One offered charm. One offered danger dressed as royalty. One offered nothing except quiet respect, a blood-written promise, and a hand that never closed around mine without permission. So I chose. Not the hero. Not the plot. Not the ending written for a woman everyone expected to punish. I chose the life that let me see myself. And when the comments finally faded for good, they left one last line burning gold across my vision. She was never the villain. She was the one who survived the story.